Did you guys enjoy that? So this was the last performance, of course. We have one more Loving Day event that's happening tomorrow at 3 o'clock here at Wealthy Theater. Actually, it's in the, what is it called? The Coning Studio, where they do films. We're showing two short films called The Loving Generation, and it is a documentary on interviews with people who you probably know, you've seen them on TV, who are multiracial, biracial, who have been living the loving generation 52 years after the court case, and some of the things that they've experienced. And we will also have a couple of people, I think 3 people, in fact, who will be also telling their experiences of being biracial or multiracial in West Michigan. So you may want to come back to see that. It is free. You can get tickets on Eventbrite, or, just show up. That'll be fine too. That'll be fine as well. Okay, so what we're going to do right now, if you guys don't mind hanging for a little bit, it won't take long. We want to do a little talk back with you. I have 2 couples, actually, Alicia and Kevin. Would you guys come up here with us, please? Yay! And then we're going to have Richard Loving. We're going to have Eric come back and be part of this discussion as well, if he's back there.
It's a couple and Eric?
And me. And moi. You guys can sit there. Eric can sit on the end. And what we're going to do is just share a little bit. And if there's questions, I'm going to have them kind of talk about, we'll just ask them a few questions about how they met and that type of stuff, and some of the things that they may have experienced here in West Michigan. And then if you guys have questions about the play or you have comments about it, we can spend a little time on that as well. So I will start with me. On Monday, I am in a loving relationship. Don't know if my husband is in here. He was here a minute ago. My anniversary is actually on Monday. It is our 40th anniversary. We got married very, very young. But one of the things that is shocking to me when I found out about the Lovings was when it was. I got married in 1979, and the Loving court case was in 1967. So basically, I was, I can't do my math, but it was not that far. When you really think about the period of time. So I was like 12, I guess, when the court case happened, and not that long after that is I got married. I knew nothing about it. And so when you really think about, we're kind of experiencing still a lot of this, a lot of the racism, a lot of the not understanding each other, and kind of going with old rules. We still have a long way to go when you think about this being in our lifetime. I tell people about Loving, so yeah, that happened in the 1930s. No. It was 1967. So, it's a good way to start, and we appreciate you all coming and really talking about this. So I've got as you can see, they're holding hands. So one of my favorite couples is Alicia and Kevin, and then I'm bringing Eric back because he also is in a loving relationship. And sure, we'll do that. We'll do that, yeah. And then if we've got people that want to say something, we can pass this down to them. Okay, thank you. All right, so why don't you guys talk about how you met? And let me just tell you, because I know how you guys have a lot of story. We're going to try to do this in like 15 minutes so that you guys can see the cast and do whatever you want to do, 15 or 20. So it's on. You don't have to do nothing to it.
Is it? Oh.
So how'd you guys meet?
Okay, she wants me to tell the story.
Okay.
All right, and with time sensitive here.
He tells it briefer, so.
Yeah. I'm working late one night. I'm living downtown, and when there's going to be a loud party, they like to invite you to the party so you don't complain about how loud the party is. It was too loud to work, so I went to a coffee shop. And I had, I'd been single for quite a while, and so my eyes weren't looking around the world for someone, but the barista, who is next to me right now, handed me a drink, and you're gonna tell them what you called it if you can remember. But she just slid this drink over, and she said, "Here is your."
Galaxy of Goodness.
So it was a chai. It was a chai which I recently kicked an addiction to. So with that drink, it kind of caught my eye, and we had a conversation. And I think I actually offered her hey, I'm working tonight, which is I was an illustrator, and we struck up this kind of creative conversation. And I said, well, if you want to, I'm sitting right over here. If you want to just come over and talk, I'm going to be here a while. And so she did. And that was like 10 o'clock, and I think we talked till about 6 in the morning. And I won't tell you where she worked at. I mean, not that there's an impact of anything, job reputation there.
Bitter End Coffee House.
So I think she took a break at around 4 a.m. to slice the bagels, but then we had breakfast. And that was really unlike me at the time. I didn't even know I was kind of possessed and thinking, do you want to go out to breakfast? It's a really awkward question.
It was important to note, too, I was in a relationship at the time, so I was not looking either. This was completely just a friendly, platonic breakfast after 6 hours talking, no big deal.
Yeah, what people normally do. And then it was, my rule was that I didn't ask for phone numbers, so I actually gave her mine and then heard from her a few weeks later, I think. And then from there, it was just like conversation. It's just too easy talk, incredibly long lengths of time, and here we are.
How long have you been married?
It's like, since 3, 4?
Maybe
4
4 years.
4 years, yeah, 4 years. It seems like...
Forever?
Yeah. But notice it's like forever when you smile. Some people are like forever, and they go,
Yeah, forever.
yeah, but no, it feels like it just fits, you know? So.
It feels like, when you get with the right person, it feels like even though you're not officially married yet, you get to a point in your relationship where you act like you're married, but you're just emotionally committed to this person for life. So that's why it feels like forever, and even though legally it's only been about 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Eric, would you like to share your story?
Yeah, sure.
It's like the greatest one.
Thank you. So I grew up in Hastings, and my experience with people of color was very limited, except that my two best friends were, one was Hawaiian, one was Vietnamese, and because we lived in a mainly white town, they got teased a lot. So it planted some seeds in the back of my head about what racism was and was not. And moved to Grand Rapids after school and ended up getting involved in some anti-racism work. Led to me building a profile on this old school website, blackplanet.com. My screen name was Race Trader, like Benedict Arnold. And it was like Yahoo for black folks back then. I mean, they had news, they had business, they had sports, they had, there's chat rooms, bulletin boards, all kinds of stuff. And I just went there to just sort of network and whatever. And I wasn't on the dating part. I was not. I just had a profile. And then this woman messaged me because I didn't have a profile pic at that moment. And she was like, "Who do you think you are? What are you, like some black Republican dude with that name, Race Trader?" and I said, "No, actually, I'm white, and I'm involved in anti-racism stuff." And the conversation just snowballed from there. She was living in Columbus, Ohio at the time, and we just talked forever. Like, we've got literally hundreds of emails back and forth to each other, and then we started talking on the phone, and she worked a third shift job, so we talked well into the late night. Yeah. That was nice. And it just snowballed from there, and eventually she moved to Michigan.
That was experience, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about your relationships, and I don't know how, if you ran into, maybe some positive things about your dating, or maybe just some story that stands out that you'd like to share about being an interracial couple.
Positive angle?
It can be positive. You can share whatever you want. How about that? Because I know if you've got, yeah, positive. Let's do positive.
Oh, gosh, I'm sitting here thinking now. The positive is probably the everyday, and that you guys saw the performance, so you're not living that. So you don't wake up in the day going, whoa, I'm an interracial couple.
Yeah.
Like, I better be careful what I do. That is a positive every single moment, which most couples I think experience to some degree. So that's just maybe a watered down answer, but it's a way of just wrapping the whole thing up. Is that's intensely positive, and then all the people that you have in your life, they're supportive of that. I mean, that's best case scenario actually. So.
So I had a different experience as a white man being married to a black woman. Basically, wherever we would go, servers and people in charge would talk to me and just completely ignore her. She has a PhD. I don't. and so it was easy to see like how people immediately regarded each of us. And then when we go out with our children alone, like if I'm alone with my kids or she's alone with the kids, a lot of times they have the people will look at me like I'm some kind of white savior for taking care of my own children. And then they look at her with suspicion. Why does she have such light-skinned kids? Did she steal them? You know, there's that kind of vibe that goes on. So, yeah.
Is there more of that or less? Is it like the same the whole time you've been together? Or was it like more in the past?
I think it was, the thing with the kids was definitely more in the past when they were little.
Right.
It's not. I don't think it's so much now that they're older, and I don't think that has to do with other people. I just think it has to do with like, oh well, let's protect the little children, you know. And so if we had little kids now, it could be very much the same.
Yeah. Service
Definitely has not changed. That has still remained constant.
Right.
That I'm the man, you know, I'm the white man, and they're going to serve me first,
Right.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I'm sitting there going, yeah, it's actually great.
Yes,
Okay,
it's a
I'm
thing.
not crazy. All right.
So just to move this along a little bit, do you have any questions about or comments about the play particularly, or some questions that you have about living a multiracial, I don't know, maybe there's some people I hear there who are multiracial or biracial and want to, or in an interracial relationship and want to share some of their experiences too. I just kind of, today, for the few minutes, just kind of talk about what you saw today.
How did the in-laws handle it?
You got the mic. How the in-laws handle it?
Well, the story,
Can I-
the story goes.
Hold it. I'm going to repeat whatever you say just because you don't have a microphone, if you don't mind. So the question was, how did the in-laws handle it, right? Is that what you said? Okay.
Are you speaking about our in-laws, or are you speaking about the Lovings? Oh, our in-laws. Oh, well, my mom was here last night and very supportive and wonderful. She and my sister had a lot of learning and still do. I mean, all white people do if we're honest with ourselves. I have no idea what it's like to be a black person, and I've been married for 15 years and have 2 children that are multiracial, and I still don't fully get it, and I won't ever fully get it, and that's okay. It just means that I have to continue to do work and put in the work on that, and that's the same for my family. And my in-laws were amazing. Well, my father-in-law he was a very stern man, and he was a Baptist minister, and he made it very clear I was not going to dishonor his daughter. And when after I proposed to her, I basically proposed to him, and was very submissive. And he was amazingly wonderful the entire time in our marriage. In fact, she would get mad at him because he would take my side in arguments sometimes.
I love it.
I'm really glad that you touched on this idea that if you're a white person married to a person of color that you're never going to get it, because that was a point that I know I wanted to make while I was up here. I think it's one of the most common misconceptions for white people. So I'm going to touch on my personal experience in a second, but I really wanted to emphasize that there is a certain a safe space that white people create for each other. And for me, when people confide in me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like you must really get it," and what's it like? And for us, it's not the obvious like blatant racism. It's the soft ignorance that comes through conversation, through friends, through family, through people that we. Hey, yeah. Thank you. through the very soft interactions that we have, and always coming from very well-meaning people, right? But that ignorance piece is there, and I'm not saying ignorance in a very, very negative way, but in just a very honest way, right? Yeah. So there is this safe space that white people create for each other. And people often like come to me and is like, "Oh, how's Kevin right now?" Because of this thing that happened with the blacks. And I'm like, "He's fine, he's cooking dinner." yeah, because he's the spokesperson for the black community 24/7. And so that is a very interesting thing that I deal with all the time. And I say I deal with, like, I take it in stride. It's not a burden on me because he's the one with most of the burden in our relationship, right?
So the in-laws question.
The in-laws question, right? So for me, I come from a very misogynist or a very homogenous family. They're all Polish. They've somehow married Polish people for 5 generations. They found them and married them, and so. When my mom, who raised me to be amazing and loving and caring and empathetic, was very nervous to bring this knowledge to the family, she went to my godmother and started crying. And my godmother's like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Alicia's dating someone and he's black, and I don't know how you're gonna deal with it." And then she's like, "Oh, that's fine. Is he Catholic?" So that was really the big thing that we had to deal with.
Are you Catholic? Now I am.
Yeah, on paper, yes. So you know, that was a cultural thing we dealt with, right? It wasn't necessarily racial, but all of the things I dealt with in my family was very soft things. And one quick example, because I don't want to take up too much time, but one of my cousins married an Hispanic man, and that was the first person of color that came into the family, and everybody was like, "Wow, he's Hispanic." And it's like, "Oh my gosh, he must like know the best tacos in town." Like the things, the passive things that were said when he came in the room, and he's legitimately, like, he's immigrated from Mexico, so there's a lot of weight that comes with that. And so with Kevin, like, it's the same thing, like, "Wow, you must know the best hip hop bands." Wow. The thing is, like, yeah, we listen to hip-hop on occasion, but we also listen to what?
Oh, gosh, everything.
Bon Iver?
Yeah.
Sarah McLachlan?
No, not too much anymore.
Not too much anymore. So I'm sorry if I outed you on that. But it's like the stereotypes come very softly, but they are very impactful. And so those are it's navigating the soft cultural things that kind of weigh on you at the end of the day.
Good question. That's actually a very typical question too about the in-laws. And after a while, we just don't care. That's my thing. We just don't care. Any other questions?
Was there any point in your relationship when you first got started that you would tell certain people or show up to certain people's homes? And did it affect, who do we tell about this? Who can we tell about this? For fear of either being shunned or ostracized and things of that nature?
That's a really good question. Did everybody kind of get that? Okay, so I think you're effectively asking, did we show up, like, did you show up with your wife? Did we show up to an event and people's reaction, were we ostracized or pushed away, or people didn't know how to talk about what they're seeing, that kind of thing? Not really. It was a combination. So I have said before, I'm somewhat ethnically ambiguous, so a lot of people, they don't really know what I am when they first look at me. And some people to start speaking Spanish to me. Someone insisted I was Iraqi one day. And they were from the Middle East. And that was, I don't know. So every couple months, I get like a new one. I haven't gotten Asian yet. But effectively, even the black community looks at me and sometimes they're like, I'm like, I don't know. Or like, he talks funny. And so you don't have a home, like, or at least I don't have a home, or in my mind, there's not a place or something you identify with. So what did we encounter? Kind of people would go like, well, I think there's an age difference. Or they would go, oh, like she's dating I don't know. And so you got that. You got a lot of this, like, I don't know how to talk about it, but it's interesting. And so we never got any feedback or anything like that. So like it's a non-event, sort of. So.
Yeah, I have one really quick one. So when I think it was my daughter, when I had my daughter, my husband was actually working with a guy. They were teaching together at a school. And my husband wasn't going around and saying, yeah, I'm married to someone black. It's not something he would do. But this particular man he was working with invited us over for dinner. And I told my husband, you are going to have to tell him. Surprise. Yeah, and he's like, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. So I went. We went. Now back then, I had a very large afro. And I was also a teacher. I was a teacher I was at Godfrey Lee, actually, as an elementary school teacher. And so when I went, I got in the door, we ate, I talked very well. We talked about politics and education and all those things. So right after that, I think my husband went back to work on Monday, and the guy actually said, why didn't you tell me your wife was black?
What was the tone? Like
I thought we were friends.
Oh, that tone.
Yes.
Oh.
Yep. That tone.
Last those cool points.
And so, again, I taught my husband something. You don't need to say it, but you need to not be shocked by it when you don't say it. I think he was very surprised by that. I'm like, this is what we walk in every day. This is how we have to deal with things. But that's a very good question because, we have to, everyone's not going to love it. Everyone's not going to, and for what reason, I don't know, because you're not getting to know that person at all. You just want everyone to live in these binaries that are pretty much false. Do you have?
The first time he met my father, or my family rather, was at Thanksgiving. It was the longest Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, time goes a little slower.
Right.
Yeah.
A real quick one. Do you have one? Okay, can he respond to that one, and then we can do the question?
I forgot what the question was now.
Did anything ever happen? You go to an event?
Yeah. So I had weeded out a lot of my friends that I knew just weren't going to be able to wrap their heads around it. I didn't want any head explosions happening. And but my 20-year high school class reunion came up. I was like, baby, you don't have to go to this. I'll be proud to have you on my arm, but it's going to be an event you wish you didn't go to. I can guarantee it. And it was. So this kid that I went to grade school and high school with, he grew up listening to hip hop, early hip hop. So in that way, like, it was kind of cool for me to hear that stuff in Hastings as early as I did. But he was the first one to act a fool at the class reunion. Like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was patently offensive. And like, even other racist people were like, oh God, he said that.
The alcohol wasn't flowing yet, right?
He was. I think that's what made him too loose to say it. Yeah, and then he ended up marrying a Mexican woman, so I don't know how that's working out for him.
You got it out of the system.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, so you have a question out here.
So my question is more for Eric, right?
Yeah.
So as, it's more so in relation to like raising biracial children. What was it like raising them as a white man and then having the talk with them?
So it's a great question. It's necessary. And that got brought up a little bit last night too, because So we started early on with books and talking to our kids, and we didn't baby talk to our kids ever. So our kids are very intelligent, fortunately. Of course, their mom's a PhD, so. Anyway, we had them reading stuff. We would talk to them very frequently, and then of course, when the police shootings and abuse started to really make media headlines, it's always been going on, of course. For those of you that didn't know, it's been going on for hundreds of years. That's how police groups were formed, was actually to keep slaves in line. But we had to have the talk with them early on when the media started hitting, because we knew that the other kids at school would talk to them, and they're like 5 years old, 5 and 3, and we had to have the talk about how to talk and not talk to police, how to not answer the door for just anybody, all kinds of stuff like that.
Does everybody know what the talk is?
Was there something else you were looking for? Or?
Just being.
You wanted to know.
Acknowledging that, that you are white and that your children are biracial, and understanding the sense of privilege that might be assumed by them because they are biracial, or,
Yeah, my kids are multiracial, actually. They're part Native American too, Cherokee and Blackfoot. But they both have, very curly hair and African features, like the play says. And what's that?
Beautiful African.
That's right. And and so they, it's been a struggle, because I have to acknowledge constantly that I don't know it all, and there are some things that they have to go to their mom for, and there's a constant insecurity, especially with my son. I'm not a black man. I don't know how to raise him as a black man. I just know that I can love him and raise him the best I can as a father and give him all kinds of great role models. So unfortunately, there are some.
I want to add something to that the whole talk thing. We've got a 17-year-old daughter. I won't make her stand up. Okay, maybe she's waving back. So that talk is 100 talks. It's 100 talks based on 100 events, and so it's a young girl. So add a layer of complexity to that. She's also, how tall are you, Chloe? 5'2". Okay, so she's 5'2". So do you want a 5'2" girl in this tough world walking around who she needs to get into jiu-jitsu? So it's 100 talks over a long period of time, and they're so heavily conditional, because sometimes things happen in the news, you're like, that was a mistake. And other times something happened in the news, it's like, the world's going to crap. And other times you're like, well, that's not in the news, but you should know that. And so she knows that when we pull over, if we get pulled over, she knows why Dad's positioning the car a certain way while the windows are down, why my ID is out like this, and I'm trying to avoid getting ventilated, and she's going to be cool as a fan because she knows what's going on. So
I'd like to add just a quick layer to this. I think it's not just the talk with children, but I think in my case, I'm a white person entering a black family, and so it's really important for me that when I sit down to dinner with my black in-laws, that I am very transparent and open to say that I acknowledge my privilege at any point that I need to, especially with my mother-in-law, and we've had such lovely conversations about this, and I'm always very quick and comfortable to say, yes, this is something that I don't understand, and I'm always here to listen to you and to learn from you. And I'm always trying to indicate to them that me as a white person, I'm not gonna try to make something about me. Because it's I think that's a really important component about being a white ally, is that you need to take a back seat to someone else being able to talk about their experience and not have to immediately reflect on your own.
You got two good ones over here, I think.
I just want to know, you're talking about being an ally, how do you work towards checking and challenging like the privilege with your own family? So when they're saying those little things that are sly, how are you in front of all of your family, putting them into a position to maybe be better?
That's a very good question. So I'm going to answer very briefly and pass it to you, because we don't have this problem.
They're like, my family's light-skinned, but we don't have this problem.
Yeah.
That's another night.
That's a whole other hour conversation. With my family, initially it was absolutely overwhelming. It was disheartening, and it was very scary for me. And I didn't do a good job of it. I found it as being a very slow but steady learning experience for me to get bolder and bolder in doing that. And my husband is amazingly passive with this, and he's like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care.
I do.
And he does, but he's like, we don't need to talk about it. It's fine. And I'm like, And so in the beginning, it was like, I'm just gonna let this slide. And then I got bolder and bolder. But also, I also got into more equity work, and getting into equity work and mitigating conversations gave me a skill set to not be able to just do it casually with my family and to hold them accountable, but I'm able to navigate that in a very delicate way so their fragile white feelings aren't hurt immediately, and I can walk them through things, but also help them understand that what I say to them is going to make them uncomfortable, and they're going to have to deal with it. So that's taken years, and honestly, if I was at ground zero at the very beginning, I'm at 10%. I don't feel like it's something that I'm very good at, but I feel like I'm always trying to learn how to do it better.
Oh, that is, of course, kid would ask that question. It's a great question. So there's a couple of different ways that we can challenge our privilege as allies in the context of marriage and family. One of them is a family member kept buying my daughter white baby dolls, and I had to call her out on that. 2 holidays in a row where you would get gifts, she gave a white baby doll, and I was like, okay, this is not okay. She needs to have a white baby doll, black baby dolls, and all sorts of colors in between, because that's her life, that's her diversity, and that needs to be celebrated. And of course, White History Month doesn't happen because it's every day. And so, anyway, so we don't have to celebrate her whiteness as much. My privilege will work overtime for her on that. But then also another way to challenge privilege is one fun little side hobby I have is if I see people of color pulled over by the cops, I'll supervise the interaction and sometimes film it for funsies just to keep the cops in check.
It's a business opportunity.
So I have time, because I know you guys, I love this, that you want to stay and talk. This is amazing. And I think we just need to find another time to do this. Just do this. You can come to the film tomorrow. We can do a little talking on that as well. We've got a couple hours to do that. But I have time for one more question. Oh, man. All right, so I'm going to pick.
Okay. My question is, how do you as a spouse deal with, I would say I'm a professional, I'm a physician, and I deal with racism on the daily. I know there's some battles, but some days are harder than others. How do you go home to your spouse, and how do they relate, or how does that conversation go? Because it is about, usually about the white population after you've had an interesting day.
Interesting day.
Very good. You look. Oh boy. How do we go about that?
Or how, you want to express it to your spouse.
Well, there's no shortage of expression. So, but even back to the answer that I gave over here, probably every other day, or it's all the time, unfortunately. It's a topic that sucks. I would much rather be talking about anything, but long conversations, a great many conversations, and you have to get it out or you go crazy. You also have to understand the limits of what the world can do to fix what's going on in your lives. You also have to cut people out, unfortunately. There are people who are never going to learn, adjust, or even be conscientious of what you're going through. They have to go so that you do save a little bit of sanity, and because it's not good for your family. If you have to, you're going to bring the story home, but if you have to bring it home every single night, you have to be aware that there's something that you then have to change in order to make those adjustments. Given the recent elections and different things that are going on in the room, coupled with what I am researching, which is helping people in need, I see a exceptionally dismal picture, and that makes it even that much more complicated. But I don't have any advice for somebody to say is keep talking to as many people that will listen to you, and find those people because they're gold for your sanity in terms of addressing all those things.
And I can add something a little bit to that too. Because same thing, you get days of just blatant racism. And I usually have to come home and say something about it. What's been great is my husband, who now, like I said, 40 years, he's kind of heard it all. But he also will, I think he's experienced my stuff so much, I mean, not experienced it, but has heard it so much, that he knows kind of what to say to me. He knows how, and he'll admit, I don't get all of this because I don't experience it. And sometimes I will feel alone. I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. You just feel like you're out there by yourself. But when I always feel like that I can go home to him and say, this person just treated me like crap today. It was either a woman thing or a black thing. I don't know what it is. And he just lets me talk. And I think just being able to do that is very helpful. It's very, very helpful to me. Did that answer your question?
Did that come close to answer? Oh, I know she wants to see it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so real quick, I don't want to take too much time, but
Okay, but seriously, you got to do it quick because I got
real quick,
2 minutes.
Yeah, so I learned early on that when we both come home at the end of the day, we come home with stress from work, and it's very different stress, fundamentally on every level. And so I come home and I'm just like ready to vent. I'm like, and honestly, yes. And so one piece that he's always been very empathetic with is like, I understand because you're a business owner, because you have certain leadership in the community, you are treated differently because you're women. So he lets me vent about that. But there are also fundamental things that I had to learn as I go that I'm still learning, and I'm not claiming to be an expert in this, but he comes home and he's been treated very, very poorly in previous, I'm not speaking for you, but very poorly in different job roles he's had in the past. And there's been times where I will listen to him and learn how to listen even better. But then there's moments where I still am learning. I still don't know. So I'm like, I really want you to come meet these people, come to this networking event. And he's like, I'm good. I don't want to do that. And then it frustrates me because I see huge opportunity in this, but I'm also realizing I'm seeing this as a white person. And I'm not even asking, why would you feel uncomfortable coming here? And it took you a while to actually admit to me, is like, if I go to another event where every business owner, every leader is a white person, I'm gonna go crazy, and no one's gonna talk to me. If they do, it's a very tokenized conversation, and it took me a little bit to really we'll take that in and respect that too. So, we come home at the end of the day with different stressors, and we're trying to support each other as best as possible. And I think sometimes the best way that I can support him is just by backing off on some of that pressure and to say, you do what makes you feel comfortable, because in our house, this may be the only time you feel comfortable right now.
10 seconds, I'll add to that. She's a phenomenal listener, and that's luck. You couldn't have bought that. You if you have someone in your life that listens to you well, that is amazing. But in the same respect, when she brings an issue home that's about women in the workforce or whatever, now we're switching roles. It's like, it's my job to listen, and you go, you don't solve it. I feel like I'm giving advice to some of the guys in the room. Because guys are like, I'm going to solve this right now. No, it's like you're not solving, you're asking questions, you're listening, because you know what? You're going to hear it again, and you're going to get quizzed on it. All right? because you should be, because it's going to switch on you later, and I'm going to be like, you won't believe what happened. And then she's going to be listening, so I'm lucky that I've got such a phenomenal listener in my life.
So I have to stop it right there. Thank you very much for sharing. We have to get out of here, but tomorrow I do have the film, and I told you just to show up. Don't do that, because we only have a few seats. So go on Eventbrite and get a ticket through Eventbrite. It's free, but we want to make sure that everyone is able to get into the space and see the film. We appreciate you coming. We hope that this was a lesson for you to take out and share among the world, in the world. And we appreciate your support for Ebony Road Players. Make sure you get a program. If you want to take a donation slip with you, that would be awesome as well. But, oh, yes, and our next show is going to be for colored girls who've considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. I don't know who knows that play, but yay, we got clappers. But that is what we're doing next, and so you can go on to ebonyroad.org. Give me a few days to update it, and then you'll have that information. Our director wants us to get out of here, but can you guys give Jason Marlette a hand, please? Have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful summer, everyone. We'll see you again real soon. Thank you.